Proceed at this time.
Judge, at this time, our intention is to call Mr. Wester to the stand to testify.
Okay, Mr. Wester, will you raise your right hand for me, sir? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And you can stay there. Just put your hand down, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is a critical juncture in a trial, and it's important you and I talk. Generally, your attorney has a lot of discretion with trial strategy. That's really the job of an attorney, is to make certain calls with witnesses and evidence and how to present things to the court, and that's what his expertise is. This is a unique junction in the trial, though, where you really, the decision right now rests on you, and it's your decision alone. Obviously, Mr. Davis is a learned and experienced counsel and can give you advice on what he thinks and what he believes the right decision to make is, but right now this decision is solely yours. It's my understanding that you want to go ahead and talk to the jury and testify in this case. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
Has anybody forced or coerced you to testify in this case?
No, sir.
Has anybody promised you anything in conjunction with your testimony today?
No, sir.
And your testimony that you're going to give is, this decision that you're giving today to give testimony is freely and voluntarily made?
Yes, sir.
And you've had enough time to talk with Mr. Davis about the pros and cons of testifying here today?
Yes, sir.
And you understand that the state will have an opportunity to cross-examine you as part of your testimony here today?
Yes, sir.
And you believe that giving testimony in this case is in your best interest?
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Davis, that you want to put on our record today before we proceed?
Just two things, Your Honor.
Yep.
First, Mr. Wester has copies of his original reports, and they're copies that have already been entered into evidence.
Okay.
He was going to bring them up just in case he needs to refer back. And then the second request we have, Judge, since this may take a little while, would it be okay when Mr. Wester's on the stand for him to remove his mask so that his voice can be heard a little clearer?
Any objection to that state?
No, Judge.
Yep, I'll allow that to happen.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Williams, before we bring the jury back in?
No, Judge.
All right.
All rise.
All right, please come to rest. Mr. Davis, who would you like to call next?
Defense would call Zachary Wester.
Mr. Wester, if you'll come on up to the witness stand. You'll raise your right hand, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Go ahead, sit down, Mr. Wester. Mr. Wester, I'm going to allow you, based on where we're at in the trial and making sure that we have adequate sound in here right now with the air condition running, if you'll go ahead and take your mask off. All right, a couple things, and you've heard me talk to some other folks about this. Make sure you speak directly into the mic so the jury can hear you. The second thing is, if you hear an objection, immediately pause. Let me hear what that is. I'll instruct you on how to proceed. Okay, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Davis.
Thank you. Could you introduce yourself to the jury?
I'm Zachary Wester.
And Mr. Wester, did you previously work for the Jackson County Sheriff's Office?
I did.
And how long did you work for the Jackson County Sheriff's Office?
From 2016 to 2018.
And was that your first job in law enforcement?
No, sir.
What was your prior experience with law enforcement?
I worked with the Liberty County Sheriff's Office from 2015 to 2016, so right at a year.
And then when did you attend the police academy?
2014. I believe I started August 2014.
And why did you leave the Liberty County Sheriff's Office to come to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office?
There were a few factors that played into that. There were a couple of disagreements with the current sheriff at the time, mainly focused on budgeting and a few other things. But the main reason is I wanted to come back to my hometown where I was born and raised to serve the citizens of Jackson County.
And hadn't your father also worked for the sheriff's department here?
That is correct.
Well, let's go back. Do you recall the last day that you were on duty for the Jackson County Sheriff's Office?
Very well, yes.
And what date was that?
August 1st, 2018.
And were you on duty that day?
I was.
Okay. And at some point, did you come back to the sheriff's department during your shift?
I did.
Okay. Well, let's start there with August 1st. We heard testimony. That was the day that you were suspended, correct?
That is correct.
And where were you physically when you got the call to come in and talk to somebody about that?
I was sitting in the parking lot of the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office at the time had a closed-in, locked area for deputies and staff to park their vehicles.
Okay. And what were you doing in your vehicle at that point?
I was processing evidence from a call that I had received earlier in the day.
Okay. And let's back up. So where was that call?
That call was at the Alford Recreational Park here in Jackson County in Alford.
Okay. And what did you do when you went out there?
So it originally came in as a suspicious incident involving an unidentified box in the male bathroom of the Alford Park. When I arrived on scene, nobody was present. I walked into the male bathroom, and I believe it was in the right-hand corner whenever you walk into the bathroom. There was a black box with a Crown Royal bag sitting on top of that box.
And did you take custody of those items?
Before I took custody of the items, I did photograph those items with my department-issued digital camera. And as well, I opened up the box just to see what the contents were. And I immediately noticed that there were multiple items of narcotics and paraphernalia within that box.
And did you have any thoughts or suspicions of what may be happening?
So with the way it was packaged, with the numerous items, it appeared that maybe it was a drop for an inmate work crew. Now, I'm not sure how that inmate work crew would have been able to get the physical box back into the facility, but I don't know if they were maybe planning on separating it, but it was extremely uncommon for that to be packaged the way it was and for it to be placed where it was. It was strategically placed there.
And did you eventually remove the items from that bathroom?
I did, and I placed it in a brown evidence bag.
Okay. And what caused you to leave that area?
So when I was still on the call, there was a traffic crash on I-10 close to the Cottondale exit. The call first came in as if it was possibly a very serious traffic crash with entrapment. So I did ask dispatch to suspend that current call so that I could respond to the traffic crash to render aid.
Okay. And were you close to the area where the traffic stop was or where the traffic accident happened?
I was the closest unit. I responded in emergency mode. That means lights and siren. I believe I probably made it there within 8 or 9 minutes, if that. It may have been sooner.
Okay. So after you go to the traffic crash, then you're completed with that call. Is that when you head back to the sheriff's office?
No, sir. Another traffic crash call came in to dispatch. Again, pretty much the same call with, involving possible injuries. And that call was on Highway 90, probably within about a mile of the sheriff's office.
Okay. And did you collect any evidence on either one of those traffic stops or those traffic crashes?
No, sir.
Okay. So it was after the second traffic accident, is that when you headed back to the sheriff's office?
To the best of my memory, that's correct.
Okay. So you described at the sheriff's office there was was it like a fenced-in parking lot?
So you would access this parking lot on the west side of the sheriff's office. You would swipe your key card, and it would allow access to the parking lot, and then the gate would close behind you.
Okay. And so when you parked your car, you remained in your vehicle out there in that parking lot?
That is correct.
Okay. And what were you doing out there?
So I was beginning to process and separate the evidence from the offered part. The big difference between this call and, let's say, if it was recovered from a traffic stop or if it was recovered from a search warrant, with this call it was considered abandoned property, abandoned narcotics. So there wasn't really a sequence that I would follow as far as numbering the items. My main concern was separating the suspected narcotics from the paraphernalia that was contained within that box.
And yesterday, Ms. Chase testified, and we saw some pictures up on the screen of items that were recovered from your patrol car.
Correct.
Kind of explain to the jury those items and in a little more detail what you were doing with those.
Yeah, sure. So in the photos, you observed that there were plastic canisters. Those are what we refer to as evidence vials. Anytime you had a powder narcotic or if you had a crystallized narcotic, it would be appropriate to place that into the evidence vials to preserve the integrity of the narcotics, and as well, it preserves the integrity further. Let's say if the bag rips, well, you still have those narcotics within that evidence vial.
Okay. What about, so what type of narcotics do you think you found there in that?
So the narcotics mainly had the appearance of methamphetamine and marijuana.
And would that be the methamphetamine and the marijuana that was found in your patrol car?
Correct, yes.
So what was your plan with that as you're sitting there in your vehicle?
So when I was sitting in the vehicle, I had the big brown bag that we saw on the video and on the photo. And I was separating the narcotics, the contents, from the bag, putting the suspected narcotics into the clear evidence vial. My plan was in one bag to put the suspected narcotics, in another bag put the paraphernalia, so that the evidence custodian could dispose of those items however state statute deems appropriate. I was in the process of doing that whenever Captain Arnold told me that he needed to speak with me with Lieutenant Hodges present. So before I went into the office, I took the brown bag with my roll of red evidence tape and placed it, I believe it was on the spare tire, to where I could secure those items, because we had trustees at the sheriff's office. By no means am I saying a trustee would break into a patrol car, but I did want to make sure that I was taking steps to secure those items. However, in the front seat, there were a pair of black evidence gloves, I believe 2 plastic evidence vials, a test kit, and 2 baggies that I was still working on. I did leave that on the center console area where my printer is, and I proceeded into the sheriff's office.
Okay. And was there also a syringe?
Yes,
And that was also found with the items in the box in that bathroom?
that is correct.
And after, let me ask you this, was that the last time that you ever had access to that patrol car?
Unfortunately, yes. Whenever Lieutenant Hodges advised me of my suspension, I told him and Captain Arnold that I had evidence that I needed to secure. Captain Arnold told me not to worry about it, that everything would be there when I got back. Unfortunately, I never had that opportunity.
All right. Well, let's move on now.
Okay.
Let's get into some of these different traffic stops that we're here about. And we're going to try to go in the same order that the state presented it, so hopefully that'll help with everybody's flow. So let's start with the Joshua Emanuel stop.
Yes, sir.
And that's a stop that occurred on April 8th of 2018. Do you recall that?
I do recall.
Okay. And we also did have a video of that stop, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Bittner is going to be kind enough to help me today. If we could pull up under Joshua Emanuel States Exhibit 2E, and if you could hit play on that one. And can you see that okay, Mr. Wester?
Yes, sir.
That's not it. Yeah.
Look, man, you seem like you're pretty squared away, okay?
Yeah.
All right. But I do have an issue with something.
Okay. So we've shown a little bit of the video. You've had a chance to review this video before, correct?
Correct.
And you've also had a chance to review your original arrest report on this, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, show the little bit of the video so everybody can recall what we're talking about. Tell me, why did you pull over Mr. Emanuel?
So I was doing a routine check on tags traveling south on Highway 231. Whenever I ran Mr. Emanuel's tag, it did show on the computer that the owner of that vehicle had a suspended license. The tint on the vehicle was low. The sun was out, so I was able to position my patrol vehicle traveling south, still on Highway 231, in a way to where I could see who the driver was, and it was clear that the driver of that vehicle matched the owner's photo for that vehicle in the database called Elvis.
Tell the jury a little bit about what Elvis is in case they don't understand that.
So Elvis, you could run a tag, you could run a driver's license, you could even run boat registration. And what it would do is it would generate a report based off of the information that you provided. And I know sometimes you would hear in the video it would say possible hot file hit. Pretty much all that was doing is it was matching up particular letters in the name and comparing it to date of birth. So whenever you hear possible hot file hit, that was not always the case. That was just the computer generating its report.
Okay. But you were able to pull up a picture of Mr. Emanuel?
Correct. So whenever you register a motor vehicle in the state of Florida, that registered owner's driver's license attaches to that tag profile. So whenever you would run that in Elvis, it would pull up obviously the information for the vehicle, but it would also pull up the the owner's driver's license profile.
Okay. Well, let's, so you end up pulling him over.
Yes.
Okay. And then tell us about how you made contact with Mr. Emanuel.
Now, so I went to the driver's side. I explained the reason for my traffic stop. He stated that he was possibly aware that his driver's license was suspended due to a traffic citation that he had received. I still gathered his driver's license and registration, and I walked back to my patrol car to run the information again. And dispatch, as well as Elvis, subsequently confirmed that his driver's license was suspended by court notice.
Okay. And how soon after you pulled over Mr. Emanuel was Trooper Opry on the scene?
Trooper Opry was on scene pretty much immediately. Me and him were working traffic, is what we called it, on Highway 231 that day.
Okay. What happened after that?
I walked back to the vehicle and I asked Mr. Emanuel to step out so that we could talk about the driver's license issue. He stepped out. I asked if there were any illegal narcotics, bombs, hand grenades, or anything in the vehicle. He stated he did have a firearm in the center console, but that he did not have a permit for that. That wasn't necessarily a major concern. It was in the center console, but I did ask if I could go to the vehicle and retrieve it. He stated that wouldn't be a problem. And whenever I went to retrieve the handgun, I opened the center console and I noticed what appeared to be the top of a syringe sticking out from between the passenger seat and the center console.
Okay. And what did you do after you discovered those items?
So I could have continued searching, but I did go back to Mr. Emanuel and I, told him what I saw. He seemed shocked, as if he had never seen that before, but nonetheless, he said, I'm not aware of any syringes, but go to the vehicle and grab it. That's no problem. So I went to the passenger side. Whenever I grabbed the syringe, I noticed that there was a sandwich bag attached to it, and within that sandwich bag was also a plastic baggie with what appeared to be methamphetamine.
And did you do a field test on that item?
I did, and the field test returned presumptive positive for the presence of methamphetamine.
Okay. So if you discover contraband in somebody's vehicle and it tests presumptive positive for an illegal narcotic, what are you supposed to do?
It will give you probable cause to make an arrest on that.
Okay. And did you arrest Mr. Emanuel?
I did.
And did you transport him to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office?
I transported him to the Jackson County Jail.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Jail. And what happened once you got to the Jackson County Jail?
So once I arrived at the Jackson County Jail, I escorted Mr. Emanuel in so that they could begin processing. Once I left the jail, I was working on my report, and that is when Lieutenant Hodges called me and asked if I had arrested Joshua Emanuel.
And you told him you had?
I told him, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And did he tell you to do something different with Mr. Emanuel?
So he asked the specifics for the traffic stop. I told him, with the placement of the narcotics, the placement of the paraphernalia, I didn't see any signs of use on Mr. Emanuel. So my words to him were, I had no reason to believe that he was using methamphetamine or using narcotics. However, his words to me were he had known Mr. Emanuel since Mr. Emanuel was a child, and that he was going to issue a notice to appear for him.
Okay. And during your time as a deputy sheriff with the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, how many times did you issue somebody a notice to appear when you had arrested them for a felony?
Never.
Did you think you were permitted to do that?
No, it was my impression that we were not allowed to issue notice to appears for felonies, and they really didn't want us to do it for misdemeanors either.
But had you previously issued a notice to appear on a misdemeanor during your time at the sheriff's office?
I believe one time.
Okay. So this might have been the second time you ever issued a notice to appear?
That is correct.
And would you have done that if Lieutenant Hodges hadn't called you?
No, never.
And you also testified that you looked at Mr. Emanuel. We saw it on the video. You had him take his jacket off, and both you and Trooper Opry looked at his arms to see if there are any track marks, correct?
That is correct.
Does somebody have to be a user to possess narcotics?
No.
Okay. Did you charge Mr. Emanuel with using narcotics?
No, I did not. I charged him with possession of narcotics.
And what is the standard of proof that you need to make an arrest?
Probable cause.
So you did issue the notice to appear to Mr. Emanuel,
I did.
and he left the jail that night?
Yeah, so Mike Hodges actually met me at the jail to issue that notice to appear.
What did you do after you issued the notice to appear?
He actually walked out of the jail with me and Lieutenant Hodges. And then I went to the sheriff's office, processed the evidence, and processed the report.
Okay. Did you plant that syringe in Mr. Emanuel's car?
I did not.
The report that you submitted in that case, was that true and is that a true and accurate report of what happened that day?
Absolutely.
You didn't falsify your report at all?
Not at all.
We'll move on from Mr. Emanuel.
Okay.
Turn your attention to Reginald Williams.
All right.
So you pulled over Mr. Williams back on August 30th of 2017, correct?
That is correct.
And you've had a chance to review any reports that you would have generated in that case as well, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So tell me about what happened. Why did you pull over the vehicle that Mr. Williams was riding in?
I was traveling, I believe I was traveling south on Brown Street in Graceville, and I observed the vehicle traveling north, and I observed that the front windshield was shattered, obstructing the view of the driver.
So did you make a stop based on that?
I did.
Okay. And tell us what happened when you approached the vehicle.
So I made contact with the vehicle. I'm sorry, I made contact with the driver, and I explained the reason for my traffic stop.
Was there anything unusual, or did you notice anything as you were speaking with the driver of the vehicle?
Yes, I observed I smelled the odor of marijuana within the vehicle.
And were you granted permission to search that vehicle?
I was.
Okay. And did you have the occupants exit the vehicle?
I did.
And were there any other officers on this stop?
It was just me.
Okay. So tell us about the search of this vehicle.
So I began the search of the vehicle, but what really stood out is I observed Mr. Williams while I was talking with the driver. I observed Mr. Williams place what appeared to be a baggie in the wallet. He placed the wallet on the dash of the vehicle. Whenever I began the search, I looked in the wallet and I did observe a baggie with a green substance. That substance had the appearance of K2 or synthetic marijuana. In the back passenger seat, there was a lunchbox that Mr. Williams later confirmed was his lunchbox. And in a hidden compartment, there was an aluminum-style device and a baggie of what appeared to be methamphetamine.
And did you field test those items?
I did.
And what was the result of those field tests?
They returned a presumptive positive for methamphetamine as well as a synthetic stimulant.
And what did you do after that?
I asked Mr. Williams and the driver, Miss Laster, about the items found. Miss Laster stated that she packed his lunchbox but didn't observe any methamphetamine. However, when I asked her about the hidden compartment within the lunchbox, she stated that she had never even really looked inside of that hidden compartment. However, based on the placement of the narcotics, based on the placement of the paraphernalia, I did arrest Mr. Williams on a probable cause arrest.
Okay. And when you're talking about a hidden compartment, are you talking about something where maybe somebody might put like a cold pack that kind of zippers in?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so like a soft-sided little lunchbox cooler?
That is correct.
And did you plant this substance in Mr. Williams's lunchbox?
I did not.
The report that you wrote in that case, did you falsify anything in this report?
Nothing, no sir.
So this report accurately depicts what took place with the stop back on August 30th of 2017.
Yes, that is correct.
And were you later notified that Mr. Williams had entered a plea in this case?
I was. Whenever someone would enter a plea, we would get that letter in our box at the sheriff's office. So yes, I was aware.
Let's move on to Steve Van.
Okay.
And Ms. Bittner, we could pull up State's Exhibit 4F, which is the disc of the body cam. Your Honor, if we could play a little bit of this video too,
You
please.
can publish it, yes, sir.
Thank you.
2554. The RO is going to be the driver. I'm 10-6 vehicle search. Come on, man. You ain't had nobody in the vehicle with you?
Huh?
Have you had anybody in the vehicle with you lately?
Yeah, I had girl named Crystal in there. One,
Crystal who?
I add more or something like that. I don't know why.
Okay, all right. Honesty's going to go a long way with me, okay, man?
Yeah.
All right.
Why?
I've got to test this. Have you ever seen this before?
No.
Okay.
No. What is that?
Let's hang out with Deputy Jackson here.
Whoa, man, where'd you get that?
The center.
Mr. Wester, this occurred back on April 17th of 2018.
Correct.
And you remember this stop?
I do.
Okay. And you've had a chance, obviously you've reviewed the video.
Correct.
You've reviewed your report.
Correct.
Okay. Tell us, why did you pull over Mr. Van?
So we were traveling on Kinesville Road. When I was traveling behind Mr. Van's vehicle, he crossed the double center yellow line. Another vehicle was approaching as well. I was directly behind him. After he crossed that double yellow line, he abruptly went to the side white line. Some people refer to it as a fog line. And then he was having issues staying within his lane. So at that point, one, either I thought maybe he was having a medical issue. Two, something was wrong, other than a medical issue was wrong with the driver. Or three, there could have been an issue with the vehicle itself. So I initiated a traffic stop.
Okay. And what happened when you first made contact with Mr. Van?
So I explained the reason for my traffic stop. He stated that his front end was out of line and that he was headed to a mechanic to get it fixed.
And how did it come about that you ended up searching his vehicle?
So when I was speaking with him, he became very agitated. I was given my normal rundown like I do pretty much for every stop, asked if there were any bombs, hand grenades, illegal weapons, or narcotics within the vehicle. He became extremely agitated, unbuckled his seatbelt, and said, "Oh, well, I know you want to search it. Just go ahead and search it." So at that time, he had given consent to search his vehicle.
Okay. And you did in fact search his vehicle, correct?
I did.
And that's what we were able to see on the video. Obviously, we didn't watch the whole thing today,
Sure.
but.
That's correct.
Okay. So tell us about the search and where you found the narcotics in this case.
So I began the search on the driver's side. I then transitioned to the passenger side. The center console lid was open. When I looked into the center console, pulled all the paperwork out, in the front corner, the corner of what appeared to be a plastic baggie caught my eye. And then when I retrieved that baggie, I noticed that it was either colored black or it had been a marker had been taken and colored it black. But nonetheless, the bag was black. When I opened it up and looked inside, it appeared to contain crystal methamphetamine.
Okay. And did you field test that?
I did.
And what were the results of the field test?
The swab that I used to swab the narcotics turned blue, indicating a presumptive positive for the presence of narcotics.
Okay. And did you eventually place Mr. Van under arrest?
I did. Probable cause arrest.
Okay. And he denied that the narcotics were his, correct?
He did deny that the narcotics were his. One thing that stuck out to me on this particular traffic stop is he stated that a female named Crystal had been in the vehicle with him. You will see on the video, I acted as if I was not aware of who that was. However, he was known to frequently be with an individual by the name of Crystal Attaway.
Okay. And did you know anything anything about this Crystal Attaway?
She was a known target in the area for the distribution of narcotics.
And you ended up having a conversation with Mr. Van, and he tells you he's recently been released from prison, correct?
That is correct.
About how long ago?
I believe that it was within the month, maybe 2 months.
And he had been in prison for methamphetamine, correct?
That is correct.
And did you plant that methamphetamine in Mr. Van's vehicle?
I did not.
The report that you wrote, is this an accurate representation and notation of what happened on that traffic stop?
It is.
Did you falsify anything in this report?
I did not.
And did you take Mr. Van to the jail?
I did.
Did you issue Mr. Van a notice to appear?
I did not, no.
Would normal procedure be to book him into the jail and then he would go to first appearance?
That is correct.
And I believe I probably have to ask you, but with Mr. Williams, did you, the previous stop we talked about, did you issue him a notice to appear?
I did not.
And turn your attention to Trevor Day.
Okay.
Ms. Bittner, if we could pull up State's Exhibit 5F, please. Two videos. If I can have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Judge, if we could play a portion of this video.
Yep.
3, 1054, 1029, 1049, all have valid class years. Yep. 25, 41, yeah, 25.
Make contact with you the first time, okay? Okay. Walk back. Y'all smoke a little bit of marijuana in there? Yeah. That's the odor I'm getting, man. Yeah. Any marijuana in there at all, dude? Probably a little bit. Roaches. Whatever. Okay. All right. I'm going to search the vehicle a minute, give me probable cause, okay? You passengers have anything on them to aware of? All right.
Just hang out over there.
Okay. So this was a stop that took place back on May 4th of 2018, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you've reviewed this video?
I have.
And you've reviewed a copy of, or reviewed a copy of your original report in this case?
I have.
Tell us, why did you pull Mr. Day's car over that evening?
Mr. Day was traveling south on Highway 71 here in Marietta. However, it was nighttime and he did not have his headlights on.
So that's why you pulled him over?
That's why I put him over. That was my probable cause for the traffic stop.
Okay. So tell us about when you approached the vehicle.
So before I approached the vehicle took an extended amount of time to stop, which was unusual. Normally, when someone gets pulled over, they're normally pretty quick about pulling over. However, whenever Mr. Day's vehicle hit the shoulder of the road, it took an extended amount of time to stop, and I saw the driver and front seat passenger make several movements back and forth. But whenever I made contact with Mr. Day, who was the driver, I smelled the odor of marijuana.
Okay. Was it fresh marijuana or burnt marijuana?
At first, the odor was faint, and it smelled like burnt marijuana.
And who was the front seat passenger in that vehicle?
Her name was Miss Kimberly Wood.
And did you get the occupants of the vehicle out of it?
So first, I asked for everybody's driver's license. But eventually, yes, I had Mr. Day, Miss Wood, and the back seat passenger exit the vehicle.
And then you searched the vehicle?
I did.
Okay. And tell us about the search of that vehicle.
So the search of the vehicle, in the ashtray, I recovered a green leafy substance. Based on my training and experience, I was able to identify that as marijuana. In the center console, I retrieved a black in color pouch. Inside of that pouch was a white residue, and scattered where the shifter was for the vehicle, as well as on the floor area, I saw a crystallized substance. It was shards of a crystallized substance scattered in that area.
And did you collect some of these items?
I did. So I collected what's commonly referred to as roaches, the marijuana, the black pouch, and as well the shards that were around the center console area.
And did you conduct any type of field test on these items?
I did. So for the field test, I had a pretty good idea of what the shards were. However, I wasn't sure. So I went to the trunk of my patrol car. I grabbed my clear box that I kept my test kits in, and I went back, and it did return a field test, presumptive positive for methamphetamine, the shards.
And what did Mr. Day have to say when you told him about what you found?
So Mr. Day denied any knowledge of the methamphetamine. As well, Ms. Wood denied any knowledge of the methamphetamine. However, Mr. Day did state that his mom previously owned the vehicle. I don't remember if he told me if his mom was currently a methamphetamine user or if she was previously a methamphetamine user, but that conversation did take place in that he had recently either bought or the vehicle was gifted to him from his mom.
And did you end up arresting Mr. Day?
Yes, I did.
And you transported him to the sheriff's jail?
I did.
The crystallized residue and other items that you found around the vehicle, did you plant any of that in there?
No, I did not.
And the report that you wrote in that case, is this a true and accurate report?
It is.
Is there anything false in this report?
Nothing.
And when you took Mr. Day to the jail, did you issue him a notice to appear?
I did not, no.
And kind of staying on this same theme, you also had two other people in the vehicle, correct?
I did, yes.
Were either of the other two arrested?
Miss Wood, the front seat passenger, was arrested.
And did you, and the same with Miss Wood, was there anything with her that you planted so that you could arrest her?
No,
Was there anything in your report that wasn't true about Miss Wood?
no,
And did you also take her to the jail?
I did.
Did you issue her a notice to appear?
I did not.
Let's move on to Richard Driggers. And you stopped Mr. Driggers back on February 9th of 2018, correct?
That is correct.
And you've had a chance to review your report in this case?
I have.
And we also have a video. If I could ask Ms. Bittner to pull up State's Exhibit 6F.
Florida. Florida's 6 Sierra 3 Juliet Papa. Be on a silver in color Chevy sedan. Be at St. Phillips Road and Highway 2. The Sierra may be a 5. Hey man, how's it going? Hey, Deputy Westwood Sheriff's Office. Oh my goodness. Reason for my stop is you only have one headlight, sir. Were you aware of that?
Yes, sir. I just ain't had the money to fix it.
Okay.
I had put another bulb in it, but
Yes,
it got
sir.
some busted lens. When it rained the last time, it busted it back out.
Okay, all right. And you live on Klondike still?
No, sir. I live on 5800 Perry View.
Perry View? Okay. All right, just hang tight, man. General.
Possible hot file hit.
Florida 27. Delta 626 741 79 1020 1048. Okay.
1049, driver class D acres.
10.
That's fine. Now, Mr. Wester, was that video from your body camera?
Yes, sir.
And we see that it stops as you're getting back out of your car. Did you turn that off?
I did not.
Do you know why it stopped there?
I have no idea.
So we heard on the video, so you pulled Mr. Driggers over because he had a headlight out, correct?
Correct.
And in the state of Florida, you're supposed to have 2 working headlights at night?
You are.
So that was the reason you pulled him over?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you approached his vehicle, tell us about what happened.
So when I approached his vehicle, obviously explained the reason for the traffic stop. I noticed that he had his little dog with him, but I also noticed the odor of burnt marijuana.
And did you talk about that with Mr. Driggers? Did you point that out to him?
At the initial contact, or?
At the initial contact, yes.
Give me just a minute. Yeah, he stated that he did smoke marijuana in the vehicle.
And I saw you leaned over there. You have a copy of the report in front of you?
I do. Yeah, I just didn't want to misspeak as far as the facts.
Okay. And that's why you would have written a report in the case so you can recall the information, correct?
That is correct.
I'm assuming you've made more traffic stops than the ones that we've seen here in court over this past week, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So tell us about, after you tell him, you discuss the smell of marijuana. What happens after that?
So I explained to him that gives probable cause to a search of the vehicle. He admitted that he uses marijuana in the vehicle, but a search of the vehicle revealed a clear container with a sticky residue that appeared to be that of like THC resin, and also near the radio compartment, close to where the center console joins in, there was a syringe, and near that syringe was a piece of aluminum foil. Inside of the aluminum foil was a clear plastic baggie with a crystallized substance. That substance did appear to be methamphetamine, and for the syringe, it looks like it had previously been used. There was a dried white substance inside of the barrel of that syringe.
And you did you end up field testing that?
I did, yes, and it field tested presumptive positive for the presence of methamphetamine.
And Mr. Driggers denied any knowledge of that being in his vehicle, correct?
He did.
Did you end up arresting Mr. Driggers?
I did, and I transported him to the county jail.
Okay. And during your conversation with him, though, he had admitted to you that he had smoked marijuana in the car recently, correct?
That is correct, yes.
But he denied having used meth for the last 6 or 7 years, correct?
I believe he said, yeah, around that time frame.
But again, when he denied knowledge or knowing what it was, did that have any effect on your decision to arrest him?
No, it is very common for someone in possession of narcotics to deny knowledge. Sometimes you will get a few that will own up to it and admit that it was theirs, but I would say a majority of the time they will deny that they knew about it.
And you did end up transporting him to the jail, correct?
I did.
And you did not issue him a notice to appear?
No.
And did you plant that methamphetamine in his vehicle?
I did not.
the report that you wrote, is this an accurate report?
It is.
Did you falsify anything in this report?
I did not.
And there was another officer on the scene of this stop, correct?
Deputy Maloney, correct.
And did you ever get notified that Mr. Driggers had entered a plea in this case?
I believe that I did receive a letter from the state attorney's office stating that he went, I believe it was a pretrial intervention, pretrial diversion program.
Okay. We'll move on to Joshua Clenny. And Ms. Bittner, if we could pull up State's Exhibit 7F. You could hit play on that?
Be out with 2554.
You ever been arrested for anything before? Yeah. A criminal mischief charge. Nothing besides that, though? Criminal, or burglary of a structure and criminal mischief, I think is what they put it as. Yeah, that's what you're on probation for? Yes, sir. How you doing, sir?
Good, how are you?
I was telling him, going to get my wife out of surgery. I know that sounds insane. I showed him the text and all that. All right. So I'm just going to give you a quick rundown. He gave me consent to search you. I pulled behind him down there. He pulled him here because he said he knew I was going to pull him over. Yeah, I seen him start to go over. I mean, and he ain't no point sitting beside the road. And plus, my Uncle John did own this. I don't know if he owns it now or not. He's on probation, doesn't have a driver's license. Anyways, I'm going to do the consent to the search. If you don't mind hanging out with him, sorry.
Don't mind at all. Where's your shirt?
That's in there. I just about to ask it. I was
going to say, it's getting a little chilly now.
It is a little chilly. Well, if you look in there, you see I had on 15 layers of clothes.
I was going to say, yeah.
What you want, man? That blue striped one, if you don't mind. See, I already had the long johns on. I've been up since 4:30 this morning. Our surgery was at 6 o'clock. I've been at the hospital all damn day. I had to go up there. The only reason I left is because I had to go get my wallet laying right over there. Wow.
So, you said your dad, you using your dad's truck?
That's my dad's truck.
You don't know why the tag's coming back to a
No, like I said, I ain't been back in town, but probably about 3 weeks or so.
Where you been out of town?
I work in South Carolina.
South Carolina?
Yeah, I work in Charleston.
You smoke weed or anything, man?
I have. My girl does. I ain't gonna lie about that. They ain't no use to it. My girl smokes.
Y'all smoking here, though?
In the truck?
Yeah.
She goes out there sometimes.
Just a faint odor is why
I'm about to say, it probably does because my dad don't allow that shit in the house. You know what I mean? He don't like that shit, so she probably does go out there to the truck and smoke.
So y'all live with your dad?
Yeah, she just moved in with me because we was having some problems with my youngin' over there with her mom. Her mom was trying to take my youngin' from me, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it just wasn't working out, so I moved her in with me. And God behold, you gotta have sir. And not only this, next week.
10-4.
Next week she's gotta go get 6 teeth pulled out.
Dang,
Oof.
All of her wisdom teeth and 2 more.
Wow, that's gotta hurt. How old is she?
She ain't but 23.
And she just had pancreatitis. She died like 3 times. Damn doctor went in there for what was it, gallstones or something like that. Went in there to cut her to get the stones out. He goes in there, cuts the wrong place. They ain't even no stones to start with.
So this was a stop that took place back on March 14th of 2018, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And you recall pulling over Mr. Clenny?
I do.
Okay. Tell us, why did you pull his car over?
So I was traveling west on Magnolia Road here in Mariana. He was traveling east, and I'm sorry, I got that backwards. I was traveling east, he was traveling west. As we passed, his windows were down, he didn't have a shirt on, and I observed that he was not wearing his seatbelt. So I turned around, activated my lights to initiate a traffic stop. He didn't stop right away. Instead, he abruptly turned into Bear Paw parking lot and proceeded to the end of that parking lot to this dirt area that we see.
Now, in the beginning of the video, now this is not your body cam video, is it?
That is correct. It's Sergeant Carlberg's.
Okay. In the beginning of the video, of Sergeant Carlberg's video, we see him driving, and it looks like he stops and puts his car in reverse and then takes a right.
Correct.
So the road that he turned off of, was that Magnolia Road?
That was Magnolia Road, yes.
Okay. So the distance that Sergeant Carlberg would have driven where he parked here by where you two are, that's the distance that Mr. Sorry, lost my spot for a second. That's just the distance that Mr. Clenny drove down that road, correct?
Correct, but I attempted to initiate the traffic stop well before we reached the road that you're referring to.
Okay. So how far did he travel on Magnolia before he turned onto the road there?
He probably, after I initiated my lights, he probably traveled for maybe 500 yards. Wasn't a terrible long time, but it was longer than normal.
Okay. And tell us about the contact that you made with him when you approached his car.
So as soon as I made contact with him, I explained the reason for my stop. He admitted, yes, he was not wearing his seatbelt. And then he further provided that his driver's license was not valid. He did give me a copy of his driver's license. I went back to the patrol car and I ran his license. It was confirmed through Elvis as well as Jackson County Dispatch that his license was not valid. And the reason that you see him standing at the front of my patrol car at the time is at some point before Sergeant Carlberg arrived on scene, he stepped out and began talking to me.
And did he give you consent to search his car?
He did.
And you did proceed to then search his vehicle?
After Sergeant Carlberg arrived, yes.
Okay. So when we see you going to start the search here on the video, that's the first time that you're starting a search?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Tell us about the search of that vehicle.
So in the floorboard, there was a yellow in color cut straw. Based on my training and experience, that straw was conducive with that of inhaling narcotics into the body. And there was also a metal cap recovered in the front driver's area that contained a crystallized residue. And then under the driver's seat, there was a plastic baggie that contained a crystallized substance that appeared to be methamphetamine.
And did you perform any type of field test on these items?
I did. I field tested the baggie with the suspected methamphetamine.
And what was the result of that test?
It returned a presumptive positive for the presence of methamphetamine.
And did you place Mr. Clenny under arrest?
I did.
And later in the video, we see another person arrive. It's kind of standing around there, not in uniform. Who is that?
That is a narcotics investigator, John Allen.
Okay. And If we could fast forward the video to almost the end. Be about 30 seconds is all we need to see at the end. That's good. We're going to start it at 49 seconds left to play.
Joshua Clenny, C-O-E-N.
Why does that name ring a bell?
He's on probation right now for burglary of an occupied dwelling.
I bet you that's
Foy Clenny. Yes.
For a while.
Well, the tag don't even belong on the vehicle, man. It's assigned to a damn trailer. He doesn't have a driver's license or anything like that. See, well, let me pause this so me and you can talk. For policy.
So that's the narcotics officer that you're talking to?
Yes, sir.
And we see here in the video, you say, well, let me turn this off so we can talk, and you're pushing a button on your body camera, correct?
That's correct.
Why were you turning your body camera off there?
So per policy, anytime an undercover investigator would arrive, it was customary and per policy to turn off any recording devices.
And were you guys going to discuss something about Mr. Clenny?
Yes, so the conversation that we were going to have about Mr. Clenny was possibly...
What's the objection? Overruled.
You can continue.
Okay. So the conversation we were going to have about Mr. Clenny was possibly transitioning him to a confidential informant.
And was Mr. Clenny ever made a confidential informant, or that ever brought up with him?
He was not. He was on active state probation, and it was my understanding it was very difficult to allow someone to be a confidential informant if you were on probation.
So you did end up arresting Mr. Clenny?
Correct, yes.
And what did you charge him with?
Let me give you the exact charges. Possession of methamphetamine, possession of drug paraphernalia, operating a motor vehicle without a valid driver's license, and violation of state probation.
And did you transport him to the jail?
Yes, sir.
And did you issue him a notice to appear?
I did not.
The items that were found in his car, did you plan any of those items in there?
I did not.
In the report that you wrote and the one that you have referred to, did you falsify anything in this report?
No, I didn't.
Judge, can we approach for a moment?
Yep. All right, jury, we're at a good breaking point. We'll resume Mr. Wester's testimony when we get back together. It's 10:42 right now. This will be our last break before our lunch hour. If you'll be back in the jury room at 10:55, again, that's about 13 minutes for your break. Leave your notepads in your chair. Don't discuss this case with each other. Don't discuss this case with any third party. Don't research or look up any information on this case. Again, you'll be in recess if you'll be back in the jury room at 10:55.
All rise.